Ever been told to move so someone more important could take your place? Most people would sigh, stand up and let it go. This man did the opposite, and by the time the plane landed, an entire airline would regret ever asking him. When I first noticed him, there was nothing loud or flashy about him at all. He did not look like someone who was about to turn a simple flight into a moment that would quietly shake a billion-dollar company. He stood near the gate at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport on a Wednesday afternoon, blending in with the usual crowd of tired travelers. He wore a navy blazer over a plain gray t-shirt, dark jeans, and clean, well-polished loafers. No jewelry, no flashy watch, just calm confidence. His name was Leonard Bristow. He was 47 years old and the founder and CEO of Bristow Dynamics, a software company that built complex internal systems for major corporations. One of those corporations happened to be a well-known national airline. The day before, Leonard had closed one of the biggest contracts of his career in Phoenix. It had taken months of negotiations, quiet pressure, and long nights to finalize. This flight back to San Diego was not just a trip home. It was his first moment to breathe in days. He planned to sit down, enjoy the silence, maybe order a bourbon before takeoff, and let the noise of business fade for a few hours. There was no assistant following him, no entourage, no one whispering updates in his ear. He carried a slim black carry-on and a leather briefcase tucked under his arm. Leonard had learned long ago that power did not need to announce itself. In fact, staying unnoticed often worked in his favor. People underestimated him all the time, and that habit had helped him more than it hurt. The terminal was loud, full of rolling suitcases, boarding announcements, and restless conversations. Leonard moved through it quietly. A few travelers glanced at him the way people do when they think they might recognize someone but cannot place where from. When first-class boarding was called, Leonard stood, scanned his ticket, and walked down the jet bridge without rushing. His seat was 1A. It was his favorite, not just because of the legroom or service, but because it was familiar. In a life filled with constant movement and change, that seat represented something steady. He had flown that seat countless times for work. He stepped into the cabin, nodded politely to the crew, and settled in. The leather seat felt cool. The cabin smelled faintly of citrus cleaner. Leonard slid his briefcase under the seat in front of him and placed his phone in the side pocket. He was relaxed. He expected nothing unusual. He had done this exact routine hundreds of times before. 2 rows behind him, another passenger boarded. This man was younger, maybe late 20s. He was tall, sandy, haired, and carried himself with loud confidence. He wore a light blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up and designer sunglasses resting on his head. Leonard barely noticed him at first, but within minutes, that man would change the entire tone of the flight. As the cabin crew finished pre-boarding checks, Leonard heard footsteps stop near his row. He looked up and saw a petite flight attendant with sharp features standing beside his seat. Her smile was polite, but there was tension behind it. "Mr. Bristow," she said softly, "we are going to need you to switch seats for a moment. There has been a mix-up, and another passenger was assigned to this seat." Leonard blinked. He was surprised, but not rude. "I'm sorry, but this is my seat. It's printed on my boarding pass." She nodded quickly. "I understand, sir, but this gentleman," she gestured toward the younger man now standing near the galley, "was supposed to have this seat reserved." That word landed oddly. Leonard knew airline systems well. There was no such thing as a last-minute override of a confirmed first-class seat without a serious reason. He stayed calm. "I booked this seat weeks ago, first class, seat 1A. The flight attendant shifted her weight. Her eyes flicked toward the younger man, who leaned casually against the wall with his arms folded. "He's a frequent VIP flyer with our airline," she said quietly. "It would make things easier if you could move." The cabin grew still in a subtle way. Nearby passengers pretended not to listen, but everyone was listening. Leonard turned and finally looked directly at the man they wanted him to move for. The younger man wore a faint smirk, like this was an inconvenience he fully expected to win. "And where would you like me to sit?" Leonard asked. "Seat 3C, the attendant replied. "It's still first class." The seat itself did not matter. Leonard understood that. What mattered was the reason. This was not about logistics, it was about priority. The idea that someone else's status mattered more than his confirmed ticket. Before Leonard could answer, an older woman seated across the aisle spoke up. "Why should he move? He's already in his seat." Her voice was firm and confident. The flight attendant tightened her lips and looked back at Leonard, waiting. Leonard thought about the early years of his career. About being ignored in meetings until someone realized his name was on the contract. About being mistaken for an assistant instead of the owner. He had learned when to stay quiet. He had also learned when not to. "I'm not moving," he said calmly. The flight attendant nodded stiffly and walked toward the galley. Leonard heard quiet voices behind the curtain. When she returned, her smile was thinner. "We'll see what we can do," she said. The younger man's confidence wavered slightly. He looked annoyed now. The cabin returned to a low hum of conversation, but Leonard could feel it was not over. A few minutes later, the same attendant returned with another crew member. This one was taller, with a firm posture and a no-nonsense expression. He leaned slightly toward Leonard. "Mr. Bristow, there has been a seating miscommunication. We need you to relocate so this passenger can take his assigned spot. It's important to our operations today." Leonard raised an eyebrow. "Important to your operations, or important to him?" The younger man finally spoke. "I fly every week with this airline. Seat 1A is my spot. It's nothing personal." Leonard turned to him. "It becomes personal when you expect someone to give up what they paid for just because you want it." The tension thickened. The older woman spoke again. "This is ridiculous. The ticket decides the seat." Another passenger nodded. "That's how it works." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The taller attendant's tone hardened. "If you don't cooperate, sir, we may have to delay departure." Leonard leaned back. "If that's what it takes, then we delay." Murmurs spread through the cabin. Some passengers were annoyed, others clearly supported him. The younger man stepped back, pulling out his phone, his confidence slipping. The crew walked away again. Leonard exhaled slowly. He knew this standoff was not finished. An announcement came over the intercom about finalizing seating arrangements. Leonard felt a warning settle in his chest. He opened a folder from his briefcase just as two figures returned. This time, a ground supervisor joined the attendant. His badge caught the light. His smile was polished and false. "Mr. Bristow," the supervisor said loudly, "we are asking you one last time to move so we can accommodate our elite member." The cabin went silent. Leonard closed his folder. "I'm not moving. I have a confirmed seat." The supervisor's smile tightened. "Refusing crew instructions can result in removal from the aircraft." The pressure was deliberate. Public, designed to force compliance. Across the aisle, the older woman spoke sharply. "This is absurd." Others agreed aloud. The supervisor tried again. "We're asking for cooperation." Leonard leaned forward slightly. "If this were a real mistake, you would be asking him to move, not me." The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, the supervisor nodded. "Very well, stay in your seat." They walked away. Leonard remained still, but his muscles were tight. He could feel every stare. The younger man sat several rows back, avoiding eye contact. The plane took off. Leonard stared out the window. He did not know yet that this small moment would turn into something far bigger. The plane landed in San Diego after sunset. Leonard waited, grabbed his bag, and stepped into the aisle. The older woman gave him a small nod. He nodded back. Outside the terminal, his driver asked if the flight went well. "We made it," Leonard said. At home, the irritation did not fade. It sharpened, because the airline did not know who he was, or rather, they did not care. What they did not realize was that Bristow Dynamics powered their internal systems. Scheduling, maintenance, crew management. Leonard picked up his phone and made a call. "Trevor, pull up every contract we have with Western Horizons Airlines." Leonard said as soon as his COO answered. Full scope, terms, renewal dates, every detail. Trevor paused. Why, sir? I'll explain tomorrow. Just have it ready. Leonard said calmly. We'll meet first thing. After hanging up, Leonard leaned back, thinking. This wasn't about revenge for a single flight. It was about respect. About making people understand that dismissing someone quietly could have consequences. The next morning, Leonard arrived at the Bristow Dynamics headquarters earlier than usual. The city was just waking. The sunlight reflected off the glass building, soft gold against the skyline. Trevor was waiting with a stack of documents and a laptop open. I pulled everything, Trevor said. Our main contract with Western Horizons runs through the end of the year. Renewal discussions are scheduled for August. We provide flight scheduling, maintenance tracking, and crew management. Basically, if our systems went offline, they would be in chaos in hours. Leonard flipped through the documents slowly. How many other companies could take this package if we shifted focus? 3 at least, Trevor said. 2 are their direct competitors. Then start conversations quietly today, Leonard said. No rush, no hints of retaliation, just a slow shift in priorities. I want Western Horizons at the bottom of our list. They treated me like a nuisance. Let's see how they handle being one themselves. Trevor raised an eyebrow. This is about the flight yesterday, isn't it? It's about respect, Leonard replied calmly. They made a public choice to push me aside, not money, not status. They thought they could. I want them to learn their mistake without me saying a word. For the rest of the morning, Leonard and Trevor mapped every touchpoint with the airline, every system, every support request, every interaction. They calculated exactly how to shift resources toward other clients while staying fully compliant with the contract. It was strategy, not vindictiveness. By noon, Trevor was making discreet calls to rival airlines. Both were eager to hear how quickly Bristow Dynamics could adapt their systems. Leonard watched quietly. He wanted the moves to feel natural, inevitable, not reactionary. Leonard stepped out of the conference room. Trevor asked if he wanted to call Western Horizons directly. No, let them notice the change on their own. That's the lesson, Leonard said. 3 days later, the consequences began. Leonard was reviewing the Phoenix contract when Trevor walked in, phone in hand. You'll want to hear this, he said, hitting the speaker. On the line was a regional contact from Western Horizons, frantic. We've got scheduling backlogs, systems are slower, support requests aren't being prioritized, flights are at risk. Leonard leaned back, listening quietly as the man detailed every small disruption. By the end of the week, the calls were coming from corporate. Their operations director was trying to stay calm, but Leonard could hear the strain in his voice. Mr. Bristow, we've noticed changes in your service. Is there something we should know? Leonard's reply was deliberate, calm, and professional. Your service is exactly what our contract requires. Nothing more, nothing less. There was a pause, then the director said, We'd like to discuss renewing our agreement. We are prepared to make adjustments. Leonard's voice remained steady. I am already talking with other carriers. We will fulfill our contract, but beyond that, our priorities are aligned elsewhere. It was polite, professional, final. 2 weeks later, the story was circulating in the industry. Bristow Dynamics had shifted focus to competitors. Western Horizons operations were strained. Their reputation was taking small but noticeable hits, damage that lingers quietly but clearly. Leonard received a letter from the CEO of Western Horizons. Short, acknowledging the incident, offering a belated apology, and expressing hope to rebuild the business relationship. Leonard read it once and set it aside. An apology weeks after the fact was not the same as respect in the moment. That evening, over dinner with a friend, Leonard reflected, People think disrespect is small, something you can ignore. Sometimes that moment decides the next chapter of your story. So you're not going back? His friend asked. Leonard smiled faintly. Not unless they buy a ticket for 1A. The lesson was clear. Respect is not about rank, position, or titles. It is about how someone treats you when they think no one is watching. A small action, like asking someone to move from their rightful seat, can ripple out into consequences far greater than anyone imagines. For Leonard, that quiet flight seat was more than just a place to sit. It became a symbol, a statement, one that reminded an entire airline that choices have consequences, and that sometimes the quietest person on the plane can make the loudest impact. He reflected on the incident again. The flight attendant's awkward words, the younger man's smug expression, the supervisor's public threats, everything stacked up, small moments building into a larger picture of assumption, disrespect, and entitlement. Leonard knew in his career, battles are often won or lost in subtle moments. Most people walk away, most people stay quiet, but every now and then, standing firm is not just an act of pride, it is an act of principle. Back at Bristow Dynamics, Leonard began to strategize for the long term, not revenge, not personal, but a subtle, undeniable lesson. His team aligned resources, adjusted priorities, and quietly began to offer their best service to competitors who valued respect as much as results. By the following week, Western Horizons was calling constantly. Support requests were escalated, flights were delayed, managers were overworked. The small shift in priority caused ripples that could not be ignored. Leonard watched quietly from his office. He did not celebrate, he did not gloat, he understood something others often missed. Power is not loud, power is not immediate, power is consistent, power is respected by being used thoughtfully, strategically, without overt anger or obvious threats. The incident on the flight, which seemed trivial at first, had now reached its natural conclusion. Western Horizons understood. Without a single direct confrontation, without a lawsuit or public complaint, they had felt the impact of undervaluing someone. Weeks later, Leonard's phone rang again. This time, it was not a manager or a stressed operations director. It was the CEO personally. Short, careful words. "We acknowledge the incident on your flight. We apologize and hope to rebuild the relationship." Leonard read it, set it aside, and smiled quietly. The lesson had been delivered, and the value of respect reaffirmed. Later that evening, he reflected at home. People often believe the world is shaped by loud actions or grand gestures. But sometimes it is the small, principled choices, the moments where you stand your ground calmly and confidently, that shape outcomes far larger than anyone expects. A simple flight seat, a quiet refusal to be moved, had taught an entire airline a lesson they would not forget. Respect, Leonard knew, cannot be demanded. It must be earned, given, and maintained. And anyone who underestimated him yesterday would now remember that lesson for months, even years to come. In the days following, Leonard went about his usual routine. Meetings, calls, and reviewing projects filled his schedule, yet the incident on the flight remained in his mind, not as anger, not as revenge, but as a reminder of how small actions can ripple outward. Every system, every contract, every handshake carried weight. People often overlook this, thinking only the loud and obvious moves matter. At Bristow Dynamics, the team had already begun integrating new clients into the systems once reserved for Western Horizons. They moved swiftly but carefully, ensuring that each transition felt natural. Competitors were impressed at the speed and adaptability, unaware of the quiet force driving it. Meanwhile, Western Horizons managers struggled to adapt. They had relied on prioritization that no longer existed. Support requests went unanswered for longer. Scheduling errors appeared in flights that had always run like clockwork. Crew managers called repeatedly. The pressure on the operations team grew each day. Leonard did not intervene. He did not need to. His principle was simple. Let respect guide behavior, and consequences will follow naturally when it is ignored. He had made his point on the plane, and he was now letting it play out strategically in real time. One afternoon, Trevor knocked lightly on Leonard's office door. Sir, we've got another call from Western Horizons. Their operations director sounds exhausted. He keeps asking if there's a glitch in the system. Leonard leaned back in his chair. There isn't. They are operating exactly as our contract allows. Nothing more, nothing less. Trevor nodded. It's subtle, but they are feeling it. Every delay, every slow response. They know something has changed. Good. Leonard said quietly, let them understand. The lesson is theirs to learn, not ours to teach loudly. By the end of the week, Leonard received an official note from Western Horizons CEO. The tone was measured, formal, and unmistakably apologetic. We regret the incident during your flight. We acknowledge the oversight and hope to restore confidence in our partnership. Leonard read it once, then placed it carefully on his desk. He did not reply immediately. There was no need. The apology came only after feeling the effect of the moment. That was the essence of respect. It cannot be demanded, and it cannot be faked. At home that evening, Leonard poured himself a glass of water. He thought about the flight, the crew, and the younger man who had expected him to give up his seat. That man had been wrong, not because of the money he spent or his frequent flyer status, but because he underestimated someone whose quiet strength he did not see. Leonard knew many people in his position might have sought revenge or public humiliation. That had never been his style. He did not need to make a scene, nor did he require recognition. The power of a principled choice was more effective than any anger-fueled retaliation. Over the next few months, Western Horizons worked hard to repair their relationship with Bristow Dynamics. Their corporate culture subtly shifted, more attentive to respect, more conscious of fairness. It was slow, almost imperceptible, but the lesson had been delivered. Leonard's simple, calm refusal had become a quiet turning point in how the airline approached every client interaction. Leonard reflected on the incident with a sense of satisfaction, not victory. Respect is not about proving someone wrong in the moment. It is about living in a way that makes people reconsider how they treat others. He had demonstrated that even small, quiet actions carry consequences far beyond what anyone imagines. The flight seat 1A remained symbolic, a place of stability, a seat he had chosen countless times. That day it became more than just a chair. It became a statement. It represented principle, quiet power, the refusal to yield when it mattered most. Leonard often shared the story not as bragging but as a lesson. In meetings, during speeches, or casual conversations, he emphasized the importance of respect, principle, and standing firm. People underestimated what they thought were minor moments all the time. But the way they treated someone in a small, unnoticed way could define larger outcomes they never expected. He would tell young professionals and colleagues, it's not always about the loudest move, the flashiest win, or the most visible position. Sometimes the quietest choice, the one where no one is applauding and everyone expects you to step aside, is the one that echoes the longest. The seat you hold, the line you draw, the principle you maintain. Those are louder than any announcement, louder than any recognition. Power isn't always seen. Sometimes it is felt in the absence of noise. The younger man who had boarded behind him that day never realized the full impact of that quiet refusal. He did not understand the principle behind Leonard's actions or the strategic patience that followed. Leonard did not need him to. The point was not personal. The point was enduring. Respect is not optional. It cannot be bargained or bought. It is a currency far more valuable than any frequent flyer status or momentary privilege. Weeks turned into months. Bristow Dynamics continued to thrive. Contracts with competitors strengthened. Their reputation for reliability and principled business conduct solidified. Western Horizons adapted, eventually restoring service levels, but the lesson remained. No one in the airline forgot that small moments of disregard could have large, costly consequences. Leonard often thought back to that flight, how easy it would have been to move, to avoid confrontation, to take the path of least resistance. Most people do, most people give up, but that moment, quiet and principled, had rippled far beyond a single cabin on a Wednesday afternoon. It was a reminder that every interaction matters, every choice matters. Even in a crowded, busy airport terminal, a simple act, holding your seat, can become a loud declaration of self, worth and principle. For Leonard, life continued. Meetings, projects, and negotiations never stopped. But the story of Seat 1A, of standing firm calmly, of refusing to be treated like a lesser person, remained one of the clearest lessons he could ever share. People often forget that true power is subtle, enduring, and quiet. It is not always seen, but it is always felt. And sometimes the smallest decisions, like choosing not to give up a seat, can echo far louder than words ever could. Leonard Bristow had made a quiet stand, and in that stand he had reshaped respect, authority, and consequence in a way no one in that airline would ever forget, because in the end the story wasn't about a seat, it was about standing firm. About principle, about knowing your worth, and about showing the world that respect cannot be taken, requested, or assumed. It must be earned, and it must be upheld. Leonard never regretted that choice. Not for a second. The Seat 1A was quiet, unassuming, ordinary, but the statement it made that day was anything but.